Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Cooley. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, also known as the DFPI. Thank you for joining the webinar. I know we're starting right at 3 o'clock. It's kind of different from our usual times, but I do want to give everyone a chance to log in. So let's go ahead and wait one more minute. Let's give everyone another minute to jump in. This is a great topic, a lot of fantastic information. So one more minute and we'll get started. Thank you. Okay, so it's a little past 3:01. Let's get started. Again, my name is Cooley. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, also known as the DFPI. Thank you, welcome, and thank you for joining the webinar today. Our financial education topic is protecting and managing your online data. A lot of great information. Let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit of housekeeping first. Your cameras and microphones have been turned off for this webinar. Please use the Zoom's Q&A feature if you want to submit your questions to us. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the presenter. They do not necessarily reflect those views and positions of the DFPI. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not financial advice. We're a big proponent of people doing their own research, and by you being here, that's exactly what you're doing. So thank you. The DFPI does not assume responsibility for the completeness of the information in this presentation. So the information that we present as of right now is most up to date. As you know, with technology, things continue to change. But if you do want more information, you could always reach out to my team. We have an email inbox that all my staff members watch. It's outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. Okay, let's talk about the DFPI. Who are we? What do we do? I always start off the webinar with this. The DFPI is the California's state financial regulator. Our purpose is to maintain a fair, healthy, and trusted financial marketplace. We do this by regulating and enforcing a variety of financial services products and professionals. We also provide a lot of presentations just like this, in person, virtual, throughout the state of California. We do this to help protect, educate, and inform consumers and to prevent them from falling prey to frauds and scams. If you do want to learn more, you could always go to our website, dfpi.ca.gov. We have a page that's specifically for consumers, and that's /consumers. Okay, so diving right into the content, why does companies and organizations want your data? First of all, your data is you. Companies want to know more about you. And so they do, with your data, it helps them do things like market research, right? It helps companies, organizations better target advertising for you. There's also something called retargeting, which means that if you go, let's say you're trying to buy something online and you log off, when you log back on, some of these companies who are tracking your data remembers what you're looking at, what you're browsing for, what you're shopping for, and it sends those advertisements back to you. It also provides companies and organizations with insights to, again, who you are, what your buying habits are, maybe what kind of income level you're at, what your discretionary spending might be, and it also helps them try to retain customers, right? Customer retention, try to retain those customers to get them coming back to shopping, buying more, that kind of thing. Your data also helps them improve their products and services. So they see that you like the different iterations of their product or you like certain features, and then they can offer you more of similar products or services. It gives them, your data gives them a competitive advantage over their competitors, right? Their competitors may not have the same quality or even quantity of data. And so that really, like I said, provides them with an advantage. It also provides operational efficiency. And what that means is they don't have to just advertise all over the place, right? They could be a little more, this is just an example, they could be a little more focused about their advertising. They could also be a little more focused about their products and services that they offer, knowing what their consumers like to buy based on the data they have. Of course, that leads to increased profitability. And then, of course, they could also they could sell your data, right? Especially if they collect all your data and you allow them to. They could sell your data to competitors. They can sell your data to other partners. It's it's an extra way that they can make money. So why do scammers want your data? First, identity theft. That's kind of the golden goose for them. If they can pose as you, if they can take over your accounts, if they can access your finances, your personal information, identity theft is what they're really after. And that can lead to things like financial extortion for you or blackmail. Social engineering is a big one, right? If they know who you are, again, your data is you, so they know your spending habits. They might know your financial situation, and they might know things about your family, and so that can lead to social engineering. Again, going back to blackmail and extortion. If they have your data, they can do things like access your accounts. So if you're using personal information for your passwords, that can give them easier access to your accounts. It can also improve their phishing attacks. So using social engineering, using extortion, right? Understanding what motivates you, right? What you're afraid of. They could use all this data to improve their phishing attacks. And of course, all this leads to, again, frauds and scams, right? They could try to make you a victim of a scam or defraud you. And then finally, they do exactly what companies and other organizations do. They take your data and they sell it. They may sell it to other scammers, right? They may take your data, sell it on the dark web. Lots of different things that they can do to profit from your data. Okay, so how's your data collected? Organizations collect data with a lot of different methods. Here are some of the most common ones. Website trafficking is probably the easiest way. They track individuals. Forms and surveys, and I do want to tell individuals to be very, very careful whenever you submit information to a site or even just a physical survey. Be very careful, read the fine print, understand how they are collecting your data and how they plan to use your data, right? So forms usually have something like your contact information, first name, last name, email address. It may ask for more things like your zip code, your phone number, that kind of thing. All that data is collected at the bare level, and they could sell it to anyone, right? So if you're if you're filling out a contest form to win a car or something, they could sell your data to car dealerships, right? So be very careful about that. Account registrations are another thing you got to be very careful for. If you're opening up accounts online with a business, with a bank or something, especially online banks, you want to be very careful about the account registration and what information they're asking you and how they plan to use that information. Sometimes they just plan to save your information for you, right? To know a little more about you. Sometimes they want to take all the information and sell it off. So again, be very careful, especially a lot of the free services out there, right? Like free email services. You have like an app, like a free budgeting app. It might require you to register and it asks you a lot of personal, even financial information. Go find out about how your data is going to be used and maybe even sold, because that's how it might be a free app, but that's how they're actually funding themselves with your data. Social media, of course, whatever you post on social media is basically public information. So be very careful about that. I have a lot of different stories of individuals who, even an individual I know who uses what's called a account scraper, and it crawls social media, it scrapes people's accounts, and it just tells them a lot of information about who they are, right? This individual, what kind of vacations, when they usually take vacations, right? Be very careful of what personal information you share in social media. Of course, your data is collected through your purchases and transaction histories, right? Whether it's with Amazon or all these other online, Target, whatever, all these businesses, they collect your information of when you purchase, how much you purchase, what you purchase. That's all important data to them. And they could sell that data too, by the way. Mobile app usage, something very, very important to be, something to be very aware of. When you download an app, make sure you read the permissions because it's gonna basically say you agree, right? You have to scroll through all this text, but make sure you read and find out how they plan to track your mobile app or your mobile usage, right? It might be tracking your global position, your GPS data. It might be just tracking your calls, that kind of thing. So be careful of that. Email interactions could be as simple as just whether you open up or delete an email that they send you. Smart devices is another thing, right? When we have our Alexas, when we have our Google speakers, all these smart devices out there that are very, very voice interactive, they have an active microphone and they actually record. They really do record your voices and they save it. And sometimes, especially if you agree to it, companies could listen and they could use artificial intelligence to collect all this voice recording to, again, build a better profile of you. So be careful if you have a smart device. Nowadays, cars are collecting your data, right? The newer cars with a lot of these smart features, they collect your data and they just basically send that data back to the car manufacturer. So think about that when you're trying to use a smart device or buy a smart device. Of course, any kind of publicly available information is also a way companies can collect your data. And then, of course, companies can always just purchase your data, right? Especially if they're brand new and they just need a bigger amount of data to start their marketing efforts. They could just purchase your data, consumer data, from data brokers. Okay, so why is protecting your data, and privacy important? Obviously, it'll protect you from identity theft. It's not going to prevent you from having identity theft, but it will protect you. And I have a whole slide talking more about identity theft. We'll go through that. It can prevent stalking, right? So this can be on social media. It helps avoid any kind of online harassment or cyberbullying when you don't have so much data and personal information out there. It, of course, can help prevent online scams and fraud. It can help you manage your reputation better, right? Again, putting out, if you're pushing a lot of personal information, your reputation could be harmed, especially if someone you once used that information against you. We talked a little about social engineering and phishing attacks. Targeted advertising, we talked a little about that, right? Protecting your data can avoid targeted advertising. And finally, data breaches, the big one here. And I have a lot of stories about data breaches, but the one that I like to share, and these are stories that are shared to me by consumers who come to my presentations, who email me, who share their stories. There was an individual, he came to one of my presentations and he actually shared his story. He actually had a MySpace account, and it's just so old. MySpace, if you remember what they are, it's kind of like Facebook way back in the day. So he had a MySpace account and he just abandoned it, didn't use it anymore. He comes to find out that some of his family members and friends started emailing him saying, hey, someone is trying to contact me through your MySpace. So he goes back to his MySpace account and he can't log in, even using his old password. He finds out that MySpace was a victim of a data breach, but since he never updated his contact information, MySpace never contacted him and let him know that he was a victim of a data breach. And so basically, someone had taken over his MySpace account and they started going through his contact list in his MySpace and just started not just spamming, but also contacting all his friends and family through his MySpace account. And the last I talked to him, he's still in the process of trying to get his MySpace account back, right? Authenticating who he is. His ultimate goal is just to shut down his MySpace account. But this happens, right? When we talk about data breaches, I have a whole another slide talking about it, but You want to avoid a data breach. With data breaches, it's not a matter of if it'll happen, it's more a matter of when will the data breach happen. And if you have a bunch of accounts that you've abandoned online, it makes you a bigger target. It makes you more likely to be a victim of a data breach. But we'll talk about that in another slide. All right. So let's talk about your digital footprint, right? What is your digital footprint? It's the trail of data that you create and leave behind when you're using the internet, apps, smart devices like a smartphone, etc. There are two types of data footprints, right? You have active, which is data that you intentionally share. So things like social media posts, comments that you put online, emails that you send, blog articles that you publish, any kind of online profiles, anything you share online is an active data footprint. A passive data footprint is data that's collected without your explicit approval or input. So that's things like your browsing history or your IP address, cookies and tracking pixels. I'll talk a little about that more, but passive is just any kind of activity that you might be doing, right? Browsing someone's website, it tracks where you go, probably using cookies, and then it kind of learns about your maybe how long you were on a web page, what content you were clicking on, right? It could even be like, again, browser history. All right, so digital footprints. I'm not going to read through all this, but just going to go right over it. How's your footprints, footprints collected? How's your digital footprints collected? Cookies tracking technology, so things like cookies that are downloaded onto your computer, put into your cache, and as a side note, clear out your cache, your cookies every once in a while. Web beacons and pixels, so that's basically landing on a web page. Sometimes when you access an email, it'll have what's known as a pixel, and it tracks whether you opened or accessed or downloaded that pixel. Of course, social media activity, search queries, and then location data. So that's things, again, like on your mobile device, on your GPS activity, that kind of thing. All this is your digital footprint, and it's collected. Companies take this information. They might use it for themselves, or they might sell the data. So, all right. Why is managing your digital footprint important? First of all, privacy risk, right? The larger footprint you have, the larger data you're just leaving out there. And this data can be accessed from anybody, leading to potential identity theft or other data misuse, okay? Reputation impact, right? Again, the more of a digital footprint you leave out there, the more publicly available information or data you have, so that this can influence individuals, whether it's potential employers or it's friends, family, contacts, people who want to stalk you, that kind of thing. There's a story about how there was this one woman, and it's a national story. She had, she's on social media. She had published a ton of different photos of her, and there was someone who was catfishing. If you know what that is, it's basically someone posing as another person by taking all their photos, and that's what this catfisher did. They basically posing as this girl, using her photos as her, and so they even used AI to alter some of the photos to make it harder for individuals to do like a reverse image search. It's a whole thing. Target advertising. So again, with a larger digital footprint out there, your data can be used to target ads towards you, especially for content that's specifically tailored to you. The dangers of data breaches. So I talked a little about data breaches before. It could lead to identity theft and fraud. It can also lead to financial loss and credit damage, right? Especially if someone has taken your identity and they're opening accounts in your name without paying them. That could definitely damage your credit. It could damage your reputation, right? If there's a data breach and someone takes over your social media profile and starts posting weird stuff, that could affect your reputation. There could be, loss of your data, right? Or you could lose access to your accounts, right? Like that individual who lost access to his MySpace profile. Communication disruptions, right? If someone takes over your identity, or takes over your account of some sort, that can stop you from posting things, publishing information. If they take over your email account, which I've heard before too, individuals losing access to their emails account. It's harder to authenticate yourself if your email's been taken over. So communications, account access loss, that kind of thing. Increase of future attacks, right? This is something a lot of people don't think about, but it is absolutely true. And I've seen it very often. When scammers or fraudsters find out or is able to victimize someone, they absolutely try to victimize them again. They might use a different scam, they might use a different tactic, but they realize that this person is vulnerable, right? Whether they don't understand the technology, whether they don't understand how to access things, they know they've kind of developed a rapport on how to, whether it's how to target this person, right? What are they afraid of, their fears, that kind of thing, and what motivates them, or whether they know that this individual is susceptible to a certain type of attack. So, um, data breaches, be very careful. Emotional, psychological impact. I hear it all the time where individuals just suffer so much stress over a data breach, right? Whether it's a data breach about their financial accounts or their retirement, and could be just even an email account. It causes a ton of emotional and psychological stress. And of course, we talk. There's opportunity costs, right? If you have a website and your website goes down, you lose that opportunity. If you have a social media account and you have a lot of history, chat, chat messages, all that kind of stuff, and you have to shut it down because someone's taken it over, it's a lot of lost opportunity, and account access information, that kind of thing. Okay, so now that we've talked about data breaches and digital footprints and managing your online data, what can you do, right? How can you protect yourself? First, let's talk about identity theft because it's so incredibly important. And by the way, identity theft is for, excuse me, identity theft. This works for just not just like data and digital footprints, but this works holistically. So you always want to monitor your financial accounts and credit reports. So that's things like checking your monthly bank accounts every month again, your monthly statements. You want to check your credit report as often as you're allowed, which I believe it's weekly. If you could even just check your credit every once in a while, every month, at the very least once a year, because what you're trying to do is to make sure that individuals have not opened up accounts in your name, right? Opening up credit cards or loans in your name. That's what the credit report's for. For financial accounts, obviously, you want to make sure that no one's spending your money that shouldn't be happening. You can also set up fraud alerts on like bank accounts. You can implement credit freezes, right? So if you go to each credit bureau, create an account, get access to your credit. Number one, you could always get a credit report that way, but you can also put a credit freeze in place. So if you don't plan on using your credit, like opening up a credit card or a loan or some kind of buying a house, that kind of thing, getting a mortgage, you can put a credit freeze in place. Your regular credit card and debit card will work just fine. But what will happen is no one will be able to open up an account in your name when your credit freeze is in place. And by the way, lifting a credit freeze literally takes 5 minutes. You log in, you unfreeze your credit. Once you open up your account or do whatever you need to, you could actually freeze it back up. Super easy. Okay, another way to prevent prevent identity theft is to update, strengthen, and use different passwords. I'm going to share a story here just because I have a little bit of time. So there was an individual, again, another individual that came to one of my presentations, and she was telling me how she uses the same password for a lot of different accounts. And what happened is there was a data breach at a company. I think it was like an old company that she used to work for. And so what happened is once they got her username and her password, then they just started using that same username and password just to a lot of other different accounts. and they were able to actually get access to a bunch of different accounts because of that data breach. So you want to use, and I highly advise you use different passwords for different accounts, right? So if you have like a Gmail account and your bank account and your I don't know, online Apple account and your Amazon account, if you have all these different online accounts, use different passwords for each of them. Because if it's not if, but when one of these companies has a data breach, that person who takes that login information, they can't just go to all your other accounts and then be able to log in. Okay, so again, log in, use different passwords if you can for different accounts. You want to enable two-factor authentication, known as 2FA or also MFA, which stands for multi-factor authentication. That's when you try to log in and it says it's going to text you a six-digit number or a PIN number, and you enter in the PIN number. It definitely helps to prevent identity theft and individuals from accessing your account when they shouldn't be able to. You definitely want to always verify all requests for personal or financial information. So if someone is calling you or texting you, posing as your bank, asking you for personal and financial information, even if they're trying to say we need to authenticate you, you want to triple check. Make sure that this is an actual bank employee. Make sure this is an actual account employee that is asking you for your personal and financial information. Avoid public Wi-Fi. I know it's so hard to do sometimes, but if you can avoid public Wi-Fi, those things are so easy to access other people's computers. You want to respond to data breaches or data breach notifications, right? A big one here is AT&T. They had a big data breach. What is it? Almost 3 months ago. If you get a letter saying that you're a victim of a data breach, first of all, verify that letter, that email you receive is legitimate. Okay, could be a scammer just trying to get you to give them your account information. So whether that's walking into an AT&T store and handing them the letter saying, "Is this legitimate? Please help me," or going to a bank saying, "I heard you guys were a victim of a data breach. How can I protect myself?" They are responsible for the data breach, so they are going to do everything they can to help you protect yourself from identity theft. So if you get a notification that you are a victim of a data breach, or your institution, some kind of organization that you're affiliated with is a victim of data breach, take action, right? Don't just ignore it. And of course, report any suspicious activity. You can report it to the FTC. Their website is reportfraud.ftc.gov. The FBI also has their Internet Crimes Complaint Center, also known as the IC3, and that's at ic3.gov. A lot of times when I talk to people who submit, whether they submit information to these organizations, they say that they feel like nothing happens, but that's very far from the truth. If you ever hear the stories they talk about collecting a lot of data and then using that data to triangulate what's happening, right? They may not be able to help you directly, but if you're reporting suspicious activity, you might not be the only one, right? These scammers and fraudsters, these individuals, hackers who are causing data breaches, are not just targeting one individual, they're targeting a lot. So all this information that is collected by the FTC, the FBI, they're using it to triangulate the origin, right? How did this information happen? Where did it come from? And then, of course, maybe they need to inform other users that they may be a victim of identity theft or a data breach or something like that. So report activity, suspicious activity if you see it. Okay, popular methods to protect your online privacy, right? This, I laugh because I did a workshop for some college students, and this was the number one thing. Okay, remember to log out of your computer or browser when you're not using it. There was a student who actually shared her story. She was telling me how you're going to class. There's a computer lab. She went to the computer lab. She just logged onto her Gmail and started working on stuff, right? Because she keeps everything in her Google Drive. And then when the class is over, she just closed the browser and walked away. Well, her browser remember her login, and the next person who came on just opened it up, and there was her Gmail account, and there was her Google Drive. Luckily for her, the person was not malicious, but they did leave some interesting stuff in her Google Drive and an interesting message for her. So very, very important. Even if you're at home, remember to log out of your computer and your browser when you're not using it. Okay. Such an easy thing to do, but also very easy to forget. Consider browsing privately. So a lot of modern browsers nowadays allow you to browse privately. So for Google Chrome, this is called incognito, right? You could browse using incognito mode. I believe with Internet Edge, right? Microsoft Edge, it's browsing privately. Firefox has their own terminology. So when you browse privately, it's basically kind of a sanitized browser that doesn't collect any data and it doesn't share any data. Um, generally speaking, it doesn't share data. It does, you do still create like a footprint and you do, there are things, but a lot of your personal data is not there. It's not collected, it's not shared. So in general, browsing privately kind of helps. Use a VPN, also known as a virtual private network. This can get expensive, right? There's so many different VPN services out there. Some of them can be very expensive. There's also free VPNs out there, but you want to make sure that they're not collecting your data on the side. But consider it. If you're very, very wary about losing your data, maybe you have like a lot of money, right? Maybe you're like a multimillionaire. Um, Subscribing to a virtual private network is a very easy way to safeguard yourself for what would be dimes, very small amount of money. Like I said, can be expensive, but they actually work very well to protect you. Okay, limit how much information you could share again. So things you publish on social media, form surveys and applications that you submit. Again, we talked about smart devices. So you want to also talk, you also want to minimize your online data footprint. And in the next slide, which is this one here, we're going to talk about things that you could do. Things like reviewing and deleting old accounts, right? Just go through all the different accounts that you might have. I know my wife used to have a Zanga account, if you even know what that is. It might still be up there. But I would say if you're not using it anymore, delete it because there's a chance, there's not a chance. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when will this company have a data breach. And then suddenly someone's going to have access to your accounts. So be very careful of that. Unsubscribe from any unused services. So whether you're subscribing to a podcast or a newsletter or Netflix or whatever it is, Amazon, maybe you have an old eBay account that you used to have. If you don't touch that stuff anymore and you don't need the data, unsubscribe, close those accounts. You also want to review any app permissions. Always carefully review it when you're signing up for a service, right? So make sure to opt out of any data brokers or people search sites, or opt out if it gives you the option to have your data shared or used for a lot of different purposes. Again, talked about clearing out your browser cookies and cache regularly. So it could be at the end of the day, could be at the end of the month, but don't just let this collect over time. Of course, it's collecting space, it's eating up space in your computer, but it's also a treasure trove of your data that's just sitting there if you don't clear out your browser, right, from time to time. And you can always request that your data be deleted. You could go directly to each company to do that. I'll talk a little more about California privacy rights and we'll get a little more into that. And of course, if you're just going to be lazy and you just want someone else taking care of it, there's actually a number of data removal services out there. There's also some unsubscription services out there. I'm not going to advertise or talk about them, but I will say just Google it. Just Google data removal service or data unsubscribe service. And there's a ton of them. Just do your research, find out the one works for best for you. Make sure they're not collecting your information. And of course, they're not cheap. Some of them have a monthly subscription. Some of them are kind of a one-time cost. I'd say just check it out, do your research, find the one that works for you, and they do work. They do work on your behalf. Okay, if you're thinking about requesting to have your online data be deleted, um, first, I do want to remind you that we have the Q&A at the very end. If you have any kind of questions, feel free to submit it into the Zoom's Q&A feature. I have, looks like it's be maybe 10, 15 minutes at the end to answer your questions. So yes, please submit it in, I'll answer them. So again, if you want to request your online data be deleted from a company, here's kind of the process, right? First, you want to review the privacy policies of the website, app, or social media platform, and any kind of online digital accounts that you might be using. You want to look for the options to have that data removed or deleted, right? It might say that there's a process that this company requires you to go through. Afterwards, you want to specify what data you want to be removed. You could just say all of it, right? You could say, I don't want you to know my geographical location, so please remove that. And then once you specified and notified the company that you want your data removed, you want to follow up, but be patient, because data removal for these companies takes a long time. Sometimes it's automated. Most of the times, they usually have an actual person read through your request and then go through, find your data, comb through all their data to find all the information that you're requesting deleted. And they do it. It just takes time. Follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. Always make sure you get a confirmation that they received your request. And of course, if they don't follow through on your request, you can review and consider any legal actions, especially if you live in the state of California, where we have data privacy rights. And here's the slide where we talk about that. So in California, we have the California Consumer Privacy Act, also known as the CCPA. It's a state law that enhances privacy rights and consumer protections for Californians. It gives you the right to know about the personal information a business collects, and also how that data is going to be used or shared. It also gives you the right to delete personal information, and there are some exceptions to it, and I've kind of linked it all. So when I'm going to send the slides, by the way, the copy of these slides, I'm going to send them to you as in a follow-up email. You will be able to click on this and go to this section of the California Attorney General's Office's website, which talks a lot more about this. So going back to the CCPA, it gives you the right to delete personal information collected by businesses. It gives you the right to opt out of the sale or sharing of your personal information. And then, of course, it gives you the right to non-discrimination for exercising these rights. That means that some businesses say, hey, we can't offer you services if you don't let us collect your data. And of course, the CCPA says no. If you opt out of these options, it still gives you access to the services and products that are available to everyone else, right? So, talking about the CCPA, we have, and I want to plug the CPPA. They couldn't be here today, but they gave me their blessing and helped share some information. The CPPA, it's a lot of acronyms, is the California Privacy Protection Agency. It's a state agency that enforces and oversees privacy laws in the state of California, particularly those related to consumer data protection. It was established in 2020 by the CPRA, which amended the CCPA Act, California Consumer Privacy Act. The CPPA, its mission is to protect consumer privacy and ensure that businesses comply with California's data protection laws. You can submit a complaint to the CPPA if you believe that a business or service provider, third-party contractor, if you believe they've violated the California Consumer Privacy Act, submit a complaint. They will review and investigate it for you. And here's the website here. You can learn more, get more information at www.privacy.ca.gov. California Privacy Protection Agency, they're great. Just plugging them here. Please get in contact with them if you have more information about your data privacy. Okay, Q&A session. We did pretty good on time, by the way. So a lot of great questions here. I also have some questions that were submitted to me through the website. I'll answer the live questions first. If you do have any questions, again, as a reminder, please submit it into the Zoom's Q&A feature. I will answer them live right now. So the first question is, how do you set up a fraud alert? So 1 second. Fraud alert. So a fraud alert is usually based on your bank account. I believe that's what I was talking about on that slide. A fraud alert is with your bank. A lot of banks have this feature where you can say any over a certain amount of money or transactions out of state or something like that. It will notify you that there was a transaction over a certain amount, or again, like there was a transaction on a website or something like that. So yeah, you could set up fraud alerts with your financial institution. Whether again, if it's a bank, you could also set up alerts with like many brokerages have fraud alerts, that kind of a thing. Some credit services, like again, Experian, what is the other one? The three credit bureaus, they have fraud alerts as well. So look into it. The catch is this: the credit bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, I always read that last one. They they may charge you to set up a fraud alert. So just be aware of that if you're doing it. But I hope I answered that question. Good question. Thank you. So next question, what kind of data is usually collected by websites and apps? Good question here. So normally, just normally, the data that is collected by website and apps is usually very mundane stuff. So again, just web traffic is the most common. If you're just traveling on a website, browsing here and there, a website will track where you came from. It usually will know like your IP address. It'll know kind of who you are in a way, where you came from, and then of course it watches you. A website will watch. It'll track how long you were on a web page, what page you went to next, what kind of actions you might take, what buttons you clicked, how long you were on a web page, that kind of thing. So that's kind of normal data that a website tracks. Apps do very, very similar things. So if you're using like an app on your phone, it'll track how long you're using the app, right? How many times you access it, when you access the app. It also track things like like it's an Amazon app or something, it'll track like what you're buying, your search history, that kind of stuff. So it's very normal. This kind of data is just very normal data it collects. For most people who are very concerned about that kind of data being collected and shared, you don't have to use a website and you don't have to collect the app or use that app. But know that that's kind of very normal for many different organizations. But what I will say is always be aware of how you're being tracked. Okay, so whether it's on a website or whether it's an app, be aware of what they're tracking and how they're using your data. So thank you, great question. Will the slides be available afterwards? Answer is yes. These slides I'll attach it to a follow-up email. So after every financial education webinar, I always send out a follow-up email. I attach the slides. You also get a link, by the way, this webinar is being recorded. You'll get a link to the recording so you could watch it again, share it with others, and then I'll have some other great information. So yes, please look forward to the follow-up email. Great question. Thank you. Next question. How can someone check the privacy settings of their social media accounts and online profiles? Great question. I laugh because they make it hard. They make it hard for a reason. Okay. Websites, social medias, companies, they don't want to lose your data. It's so important to them. And so they kind of bury it. Sometimes it's easy to find, right? It's just go to your profile and it's got like your data settings. But I know Facebook makes a concentrated effort to make it very difficult for you to access your privacy settings, your security settings, right? So, the best thing I could do is just say, go to YouTube and type in like how to go to privacy settings, because you could watch a step-by-step, because every website, every app, every social media site, they have a different way to access. And sometimes, by the way, this is very true, they move it around. I feel like every year, if not every 6 months, they move around the privacy settings. So you might have gone there 6 months ago, but you want to go back to check on it. It's not there anymore. So you're like, oh, where did it go? and you have to go look and you have to chat. You have to go to YouTube to look at the answer. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. There's no real good answer here, but there are ways to find out. And I feel like YouTube is kind of the universal place to go to find out where you could get the privacy settings for, again, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it might be. I think that seems to be the best place to go and get instructions on how to access those privacy settings. Great question, though. Online profiles is sometimes a little easier, right? So things like your Amazon account or your Netflix account or any other online account, they do like to bury it, but sometimes it's a lot easier to find. So again, I feel like YouTube is kind of the best place. Hope that answers the question. What are some best practices for having secure passwords and managing them? Good question. Very good question. First is secure passwords. So I like to use, this is just me, you can do whatever you want. I like to use, of course, capital letters, numbers, symbols, if the website or uh, platform allows it. It makes it very, very difficult. Um, I use random, sometimes I use very random numbers, and it's usually just a combination for me. So I don't know. I would say random combination of capital letter, lowercase letters, and of course, special characters, numbers are a great way to have secure passwords. Also, passwords over 8 letters long make it very secure as well. Managing passwords is a little bit more tricky. I will say my dad, he's very old school. And what he does is he uses a book. So he has a little book of all his passwords. Honestly, it works really good. It works really good for him especially. But sometimes I'm like, Dad, I need to help you with something. What's your password email? And he'll just give me his book and be like, it's in there, and I'll just log in and help him manage his bank account or something, right? Um, it works well, but of course you could lose it, and then someone could also take it from you, and now they have access to everything. I don't have a really good answering to managing passwords. I know there's a lot of platforms and softwares, things out there. I think Google Chrome offers the ability to store passwords. I don't feel I don't feel secure about any of those, right? So maybe I don't want to say it's a sticky note. No, 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 not a sticky note. Don't use a sticky note on your desk. That's so easy for someone to take. I, I would. Okay, I'll tell you what I do. I use the similar password. I use very similar passwords, but I change 1 or 2 letters or numbers. That's what I do. Whether it's a month or it's the year or something like that, or it's the age of my son, I will use that in combination with a bunch of other my passwords, right? And that makes it change every year, or it makes it change every month, or it makes it change every time I have to change it. It's an easy way for me to track it because I remember, oh yeah, this is what's happening or this is what's going on. So that's what I do. Do whatever I think it's just manage your passwords however it's going to help you. Sorry, that was a very long answer to a very good question. Okay, what should you do if you suspect your personal data has been compromised in a data breach? A couple different things. Number one, go to identitytheft.gov. Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat. Identitytheft.gov. Okay, it's a website managed by the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission. It gives you a lot of great steps to take to help you not just recover, but also prevent yourself from becoming a victim of identity theft. But if you do suspect being personal data has been compromised, first of all, go to the company, right? So whether it's AT&T or whatever your bank account, go to them, let them know, hey, I think I've been a victim of a data breach, right? And that could be something as simple as I didn't do anything, but now someone has access to my email accounts. That's going to force the company to check on themselves, right? Maybe they were a victim of a data breach, but they don't know it yet, and you're kind of the first victim. So you definitely want to contact the company first. But if you yourself has been like someone's hacked your computer, I would definitely just start at identitytheft.gov to just try to do things like put a credit freeze in place, change all your passwords, that kind of thing. So a lot of different things that you could do. Good question. Thank you. As a parent, I'm concerned about privacy related to children, teens using the internet. How can parents address these issues? Really, really good question. And I wish I had a lot more time to talk about this one. My I have two sons. They're very young and they have iPads and they're on them basically all day. And I know that's bad parenting, but um, my wife and I do we have a very concentrated effort to try to limit how much they're on their devices and also what kind of data that device collects. My kids are too young to understand like data privacy right now. But as they get older, I plan on talking to them about data privacy, how important it is not to share all your information. So yeah, I would definitely have a lot more parental controls on your kids' devices. But as teens, I would definitely have a conversation to them and talk to them about how important it is to be very aware of your data, your digital footprint, and of course your data identity, right? Your identity online. So talk to them because you can't be as much as you want to, parents. I'm with you here. You can't be on their device with them all the time, right? And they're going to go places and do things. You just want them to be as informed and educated as you are to help protect themselves, right? So great question. Thank you. All right, we got some more time. I'm going to try to answer all these questions. Is Experian a good monitoring service? They offer service for about $30 a month. I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I don't use Experience's service except to get my credit report and also put a credit freeze on my credit. So I don't know if they're a good monitoring service for $30 a month. I hope they are. That's a steep price. I couldn't say for sure. And honestly, I wouldn't be advertising them anyways. But I would say do your research. Look up the reviews, right? I'm sure they're not by the way, not reviews on their website, but go other places like third party to review it and learn more about it. Go on like YouTube. Sometimes YouTube reviews are really good where they talk about a service that they subscribe to and whether it's worth it. So I hope that answers that question. Thanks for sharing that though. How frequently should you review and update your privacy settings across various platforms? I would do it at least once a month, at least once a month. You could do it at the beginning of the month, you could do it at the end of the month. The reason you want to always review and update your privacy settings is because, as you're aware, technology continues to change. Social media platforms always updates their services, their terms, their conditions, new features that they might add, right? So if you don't go check your privacy settings, right? Maybe Facebook adds a whole new feature, and because you didn't check your settings, now it's sharing all this information, right? Again, check it once a month, at the very least once every 6 months to make sure the settings hasn't changed. Make sure they didn't add any new privacy settings that you need to be aware of. But yeah, definitely check at least once every 6 months, I would say. Once a month is kind of the best roundabout way to do things. Great question. This is a really good question. Dark web is a huge problem. Yes. How do we protect ourselves from the dark web? So you can't. You cannot. The dark web is just something that's out there, and there's nothing you can do about it. I actually just got done doing a presentation with the San Jose Police Department. They had a detective there, and he had a really great advice. It was so good. I'm sharing it here too. He said you should always operate with the assumption that your information is on the dark web. So just in layman's term, just assume that your information, your public information, is already on the dark web. Okay. And so think of it as your digital identity with a couple different puzzle pieces. As data breaches happen, they start putting more pieces of this puzzle together. And ideally, what a scammer, fraudster, hacker, what they're trying to do is they're trying to put this whole puzzle together. They want to know who you are, what you do, how to access your accounts, right? And so once they get more pieces of the puzzle, they can learn more about you so that they can, again, whether it's social engineering or whether it's trying to get access to your accounts, they have information from the dark web already. Maybe they bought it from the dark web, but what they're trying to do is get more information to put this puzzle together so they could base essentially pose as you or take over your identity, right? So the dark web is a problem. There's almost no way to protect yourself from it, except to, again, everything we talked about in this webinar, which is protecting your digital footprint, right? Minimizing your digital footprint, and protecting yourself from data breaches, like closing down accounts you don't use. So all this information does not get breached and sold on the dark web, right? Great question. That's such a great question. Thank you. You mentioned data brokers earlier. Yes. Do they make money, and what role do they play in collecting and sharing personal data? Yes, data brokers. You know what? I took out a slide talking more about data brokers, but basically, what a data broker is, it's someone. It's a company, and there's so many data brokers out there. Some of them are really bad. Some of them are legitimate. They're not bad, but some of them are really, really bad. And what they do is they just buy data in mass. They just go to the big companies that collect data, things like places like Google, Yahoo, social media sites. Whoever is selling data, they are buying it and then reselling it, right? Sometimes they collect all the data and combine it, right? So they say, oh, here's information from Google about you. Here's information we found from Instagram about you. And look, here are all the public posts you put on Twitter. We're going to collect that too. And then we combine it. We have kind of a profile of who you are. And then as a data broker, what they do is they go to companies that are looking for this kind of data and they say, hey, you're looking for someone with this demographic, living in this geographic location, maybe with this kind of income. We have their data. Would you like it? Maybe you can call them, right? Here's their contact information. Here's their email information, right? Here's where you can send them ads. So you can send it to their Netflix or their Amazon so they can watch your ads. That's what data brokers do. That's how they make money. They collect data, they combine it, right? They collate it, combine it, crunch it, and then they sell it off to other companies looking to buy the data to, again, what do you call it? To better target you for their products and services. But by the way, scammers and fraudsters and hackers, they can buy data too. It's not cheap, but they could do it. You go to data brokers and you just buy data, right? The data brokers are they're really not picky about who they sell data to. So you again, this all goes back to try to limit what data you share. Try to limit what data you allow companies to collect of you because it's being sold and you don't know who's buying your data. So also, again, you could always have your data deleted from these companies. So consider that. That's a great question. So good. Is it safe to manage passwords by putting in your notes on your phone? Yes and no. I know so many people, and I'm winking out there to my wife. I know so many people that lose their phones. So maybe not putting your passwords on your phone might be a good idea, right? Saving it somewhere else besides your phone. Um, but if you feel like your phone, like you never lose your phone, you always keep it by you, uh, and you feel like your phone is secure, you could put your passwords in your phone. But I would not recommend it only because it's so easy to lose your phone or have your phone stolen. And by the way, I know how much Apple likes to say it, but having someone crack a phone is pretty easy. And once they crack your phone, they can get access to your passwords, and now they have access to all your information. So just be careful about that. Great question though. Okay, we are coming up on the hour. One last question here. What about password vault utilities and apps? You know, again, not gonna advertise anyone. Some of them are better than others, but this is my trepidation. This is my anxiety about password vaults or password apps. Every website, every app, every platform service, it is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when So if you're using like a password vault or utility or app of some sort, it's not a matter of if they'll ever be hacked and then now someone has all the passwords to your accounts. It's more of a when will they get hacked, right? Um, as our team likes to say, we have a very robust IT infrastructure, but our weakest point is the users, right? And so it could just be a accountant at one of these password utility companies who accidentally clicks on some phishing email or a link, and now there's a data breach for your password vault app, and now all your passwords are out there in the dark web, right? So again, I have a little bit of anxiety about sharing all my apps, or sharing all my passwords on an app or a utility. But if you think it's going to work for you, power to you. Go for it. I would say do your research. Okay, um, we do have some more questions that were submitted to us during the registration, but I'm going to hold off on answering them. I know we're right up at the hour. Thank you for that question. I do want to do some last minute wrap up here. So we have two webinars coming up, a bunch more for the rest of the year, but these are the two next webinars in about 2 weeks. It's our debt relief student loan updates webinar. If you have student loans, please register for this webinar. If you don't know right now, the Supreme Court, I believe, put a stay on the decision about student debt relief. So I'm not going to talk about it here. Just click on the link, register for this webinar. Selena Damian is going to be there. She's the DFPI student loan servicing or BUDS person. She's going to talk all about it. Be sure to register and go to that one. Our next financial education webinar is estate planning. Please check that out. I have a fantastic guest that's going to be on. She's going to talk about all the different options about starting a trust, what's a living will, all this great information. So go to that link, register for as well. Again, these slides will be emailed to you, so you can click on those links in the PDF that's sent and register for those webinars. Subscribe to our newsletter, check out our YouTube channel if you can, and we do need your feedback. If you have the 5 minutes, we don't collect any data except for what you submit to us. And again, we only use that data to make these webinars better for you. So submit your feedback if you can. With that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us, to listen to me rant for a little more than an hour. I hope you all do well out there, and it's a little bit hot, so keep cool. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great day. Bye.